I would like to talk, because I hope you all are here. How many came here because they wanted to get some nice food? Now be honest.
Sure.
But also, I hope most of you are here because you want to learn something and to improve your art. And I can do that much more effectively by showing you a few things and talking to you in this short amount of time. And if that's all right with you, I will get my other things, and I hope that it'll be some time well spent for all of us.
Whatever you think.
And I'd like to put $10 up here, and at the end of this today here, well, I don't have a 10. I'll put up a 20. And that 20 goes to the person who gains the most and feels that this has been a more beneficial day for them than for anybody else. Okay?
A lot of it softens up after you wash it.
We'd much rather the artist introduce himself, and he said, oh, that interview, those were all lies anyway. So this is the kind of conversation I have with Frank. So I'm going to tell you the things that he told our intrepid reporter and editor. Frank Gustafson has been a painter for many years. He was born in Kansas, Missouri. He had 2 cattle ranches, which are now run by his children. His first real art enlightenment came when he saw a traveling exhibit of Van Gogh's. He'd seen many illustrations of his art, but when he saw the originals, he was astounded. He's attended many workshops, and he's taught art classes in Montana. His work flows from the rocks to the sea to florals and beyond. And he says that he doesn't have any particular style, and he makes changes, little changes, and it's kind of an ongoing process. His partner is Ginger Fetters, and the 2 of them have just opened a marvelous, wonderful art gallery and art supply store just 2 blocks on the main drag, just 2 blocks north of, what's the name of their paper?
Pilot.
The Pilot. They sell their paintings, art supplies, and frames, and they do paintings on commission. It's open from 11 to 5 and closed on Mondays. And so without further ado, we're going to hear from Frank Gustafson. Thank you.
I did mention that I would like to elaborate a little bit on is that feeling I had from Van Gogh. I was in my early 20s when guys, in the fall they play with footballs, in the wintertime they play with basketballs, and in the spring and summer they play with baseballs. And then they're interested in girls the whole year around. Well, when I was double dating, and this other couple wanted to go see this exhibit of Van Gogh. Well, I had heard of him, but that was about all. Anyway, we went and saw this exhibit, and here I was, a virile young man, and I looked at these things, and I looked at the actual paintings, and maybe 3 times in my life I've had a feeling like this. But I felt it at that time looking at these paintings. I looked at the prints, which we're talking about 50 years ago. And they were, I'm sure, the best prints that could be made at that time. And they didn't do anything to me. But the actual painting did. And it was an inspiration, and it was an emotional experience that I've always remembered and always felt. I don't know how he got there. I'd like to say I try to emanate what he does. I never will, never can. But it's there, and I felt it, and I enjoyed it. And so, as Doretta mentioned, we did teach in Montana for several years, and when I started teaching, I taught entirely differently than I did when we moved here to Oregon. I learned a lot of things through teaching, and I learned things that worked with students, seemed to help them more than others. And this goes back to this Van Gogh thing. If you're going to paint something, I don't care what it is, but be inspired by it, be enthusiastic about it, if you look at a scene and you see something that is particular, that affects you, affects your personality, then work on that. And if you do that every time you paint, with time your painting will improve immensely. You've got to be honest with yourself. I saw a sign of a professional artist is a person who can go in and paint from 8 till 5 every day. And to me, that's not a professional artist at all. Professional artists might not even paint some during a year. I shouldn't say professional. Maybe that is a term of professional. But it's not going to be a good artist. And what is good? Van Gogh, who has sold, as I understand, 3 paintings for the top amount of money of all time. He has 3 paintings in the top 10. And yet he didn't sell any paintings during his life. His brother sold one of his to a friend of his brother's. You know, buy my brother's painting, and he bought it. And so a lot of the critics, the great art people of the time, they didn't recognize him at that time. Is he great? I don't know. I think so. I think there are a lot of other people that do that. So getting back to painting and improving your painting, be enthusiastic about what you paint and have an emotional experience and a relationship with it. People paint for different reasons. Some of us enjoy it more than others. I haven't painted basically for almost 2 years now. I just started again, and I got back into it because we were opening this gallery, and I wanted to paint a little bit and have some things there at the gallery. As I say, I was in the Brookings Library in February it was, and we demonstrated down there a lot and gave some talks and lectures and instruction and then some question and answer, which at the end of this today, if anyone does have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. First of all, I want you to know that I know very little about art. The more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. I am prejudiced. I started in watercolors, and then I went to acrylics, and now I've ended up in oils, and I'm prejudiced. I like oils, and the reason I like oils is because I guess I changed my mind. I can paint a painting and be sort of content with it and go to bed and get up the next morning and wonder why in the hell I left that like that. You know, and I will hang, and down in my gallery I have signs around, don't touch the paintings because some of them are wet. And I hang them up and I'll look at them for 3 or 4 days and not a thing. And then one day I'll come in and look at a painting and I've got it. Yesterday I took a painting off the wall because I just have to do something to it before I want other people to look at it and try to sell it. I have a few paintings here today I want to show you. Not that they are good, but they are, something happened during the process of developing them. I cannot reproduce. I don't know how to do it. I did it, but I don't know how to do it, and I don't know how to teach to do it. And so I think it's something that it goes back to the emotional, your style, the things that were your makeup during your early years in your life. And I think that I looked around this room here, and I felt to improve your painting and to get people to listen to you, I'll be very happy if you all look like you're attentive, but I'll be very happy in a month if you all remember 25% of what I said. But I can up that by creating an emotional situation. Like I remember that experience of Van Gogh. I don't remember who I had a date with. I don't know what other things happened probably that 6 months in that period. But I remember that one instant. And so if you get these feelings, then your paintings will have more feeling and emotion to them. And how can you bring out that emotion and feeling? And that can be done in many ways, and that we get into the basic understandings of paintings. And probably the first is composition, design. The paintings that I have, that I do now, the way I paint, and I will show you how I paint this week. In other words, if I talked to you 2 months ago, I would have described how I paint differently. And in 2 months from now I will be painting differently. In fact, I did something yesterday that, it's called a funny brush. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? I got it 10 years ago. I'd never used it. And I pulled it out and tried it on something, and it came out really nice. And I was really happy with the result I got with it. And here's it. I would have liked to have brought that painting to show you. What I did is it's a floral, and this is a curtain. And I put the design of the curtain with this funny brush. It worked out really nice. So there's a lot of things that you can use. Like when I started teaching, quote unquote, art classes, I would recommend different brushes for different things. Now I've gotten to the point of, you know, any brush is fine. Your finger is great, just don't use it, never use it. I'm not convinced that the labeling on our paints are true. In other words, I think there are some bad things in there. I think if you cover your hands with these gloves or a cold cream or a hand cream of some kind, this will help. The worst thing to do is to clean your hands with turpentine. The turpentine acts as a piggyback to take it through and gets into your system. It takes it through your skin easier. But here's some brushes I just happened to grab. And I'm getting so I paint larger and larger, and I don't know if I did or not. I think I brought a painting that I did with a brush just a little bit smaller than this. And I mean, here's some really good brushes. Look at that. I mean, I use that paint with, you know. And then some of the bristles are, I have gone lately more to the natural bristle, the hog bristles and things like that. But any of them are fine. I do feel it's very important that when you use a brush in acrylic, watercolor, or oil, that you put a conditioner, if it's a natural bristle brush, put a conditioner on it at the end of your painting. The conditioner in oils gets out the last bit of the oils and it saves it the brush, so that when you take a big, long, flat and use it, it is still nice and flexible when you get through. So I use all different kinds of brushes, and I use some palette knives. I have some paintings here that I'm going to show you today. Oh, and then this is a wipeout tool. Maybe some of you have seen it. It's a little rubber thing, and you can make one out maybe of a pencil with an eraser, and just you can scratch some of your paint out, and it saves some things. I've gotten so I'm painting thicker. This painting, okay, how I'm going to demonstrate a little bit on how. This I worked up. When I get through painting at the end of the day, you've got a bunch of colors. So I take the darks and mix them all together. I don't care what color I end up with a dark, okay? And so I like this composition, and it worked good for me, so I was happy with it. So I took that, and can you see the similarity? And so then I worked this. So then
Turn it this way.
So I added color to it. So you all have painted some, just your imaginations. Just with this, you could paint 50 different paintings. They would be similar, of course, because of the design, the composition is there. But you could add all kinds of color arrangements, color harmonies, and things like that, which we'll get talking about in a little bit. So I was still happy with this, and so what I did, can you see the similarity? There it is. Now this painting, when I get around to it, I will paint it like I did this last one. But now when I paint this, when I did these, my painting style, you can see, is very smooth and things like that. And it's blended a little bit. This shows a little bit more of where I am going now.
Much thicker.
And some people don't like it as well. Other people like it. I don't care. I paint for myself. I am fortunate enough, my cattle are doing well enough that I don't have to make a living off of painting. I opened the gallery primarily to have a place to exhibit my work. I needed a place to exhibit my work, and then we paint down there, and so it's not a waste of time. We go in there and we're painting unless we're talking to somebody. But anyway, after I finished this, I never thought about it, but I've named it Bear Rock, as maybe you all can see. And but squint your eyes so you don't know if I'm me or Goretta, or even Lisa. But squint your eyes and look at that. Look at that. You squint. You never do anything you're told, do you?
I already squinted an hour ago.
Oh. All right. But
I'm gonna get the $20.
you can say that again. She'll owe me. But there's an abstract design there. And so my paintings, when they are at this level, at this stage, I have an abstract design that I create. In other words, at this thing. I squint my eyes so I don't know if it's a seascape or a landscape. And then if that abstract design looks good, then I don't have to do very good from then on. And I'm going to end up with a decent painting. I never do any great painting, okay? But when I say a decent painting, I call this decent, okay? And so if you have this abstract design, and if you don't lose it between there and this finished painting, then you will have a fairly good painting. If you don't have a good abstract design at this stage, then no matter what you do, you're not going to end up with a very good painting. Yes?
How do you start with an abstract? If you would...
I should have brought some thumbnails along. Very abstract. I mean, in other words, it's basically a value. It is so abstract that I can take that. This is way developed past my abstract. I don't have an abstract example. I'm sorry. An abstract example would be at that stage. I could make it into a landscape. I could make it into a seascape. Or something like that.
So you just balance your lights and darks
right.
over the...
Values and shapes. Values and shapes. And anything I say is not 100% true, okay? Now this, okay, I was working this up. This is another way. I set up a still life, which this takes much more time to do. Setting up this still life takes much more time to do. Got to keep the camera lady happy. The things I do to keep people happy. Then I have this little thing, which was cut out of a cereal box. And then I go around in here. This right here has at least 10 paintings in it that I can make from this. And so then I go in here and I bring it back and forth. Leaf is trying to get extra attention. And so then you can create these things. So I went in there and I don't have one the size. Now when I go to paint this, I'll show you. Okay. Now this I screwed up 2 days ago because I wanted to bring it over here, and I screwed up the bottom, and I couldn't go back in and lighten it up. But you can see where this is coming from. So I can move this around here. I can show more fruit or just a corner or things like that. And it's fun to take a picture like this and get something and try to make a whole bunch of different paintings out of it. Okay? But I got this all messed up and I changed. I am a terrible drawer. I can't draw worth a darn. Liz James pulls out the few remaining hairs she has when she sees some of my drawing. And Liz and I have a good relationship. I took some of her classes. On Friday she has a class where she just critiques paintings and talks about them. And went in there one time so she was, I don't know, she was feeling a little bit lazy, or I'm not conceited enough to think that she couldn't think of something right off the bat to knock me down for. But she says, why don't you critique your painting first today? And so I said, you know, right back. The minute she stopped that, I said, well, now, do you want me to talk about the things that there's wrong with the painting, or the things that you would just be familiar with? And if you all know Liz Jane, man, that's the first time she was speechless for about 2 minutes. But anyway, I go to her class, and one time I was at Fred Meyer's, and a couple of her students came up and said, are you going to be at her class this Friday? And I said, yes. And they said, oh, good, we'll come then. Well, why are they going to come if I'm going to be there? I knew it wasn't my deodorant or anything like that. But I couldn't. I said, what do you mean by that? And she says, Liz gets after you more than anybody else. And Liz, I mean, she gets down and dirty, you know, as the old expression goes. And she really lays it on. And they said they learn more when she critiques my paintings than they do, because Liz is nice to other people, because people are thin-skinned. And this is, Ginger and I taught together, and everybody loved Ginger. And I think people came to the class because I had my thinking behind it. You know, I'm not as nice and as Ginger is, but anyway. But so these two ladies, they wanted to come to class if I was going to be there, so that they could learn from Liz really giving me that. But anyway, this has got to be changed. But this is another way I am doing this idea of this painting. Okay, this is the way I'm working out. This is the way I am doing it this time. Oh, and then I do several little thumbnails of each one of these things before I make the final decision on here. And then I have found out I try to stick with my thumbnails. I work with them quite a bit. But then when I do go to the painting, I do actually change it, yes.
Gus, could you pass around your thumbnail? Frank, the black that you put that on 10 and then do a rub out method for the height, for the lighter value?
No, that is a good way of doing it. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, with this one,
For the roses, it kind of looked like maybe you had done that.
I am highly educated, but I'm not too intelligent. And so, repeat that question, please.
Black base on, and then do a rub out the highlights, the lighter value.
This was a black canvas started
I
with.
see.
I tone my canvases at different times. I have a whole bunch of canvases
So it
toned
wasn't
different.
black wet?
No, this was black. Right.
Okay.
I'm glad I thought of that, to explain that. Thank you. I'm supposed to pass these around? Okay, here's the interesting thing. Look at this. Decide if you think you can read on the back of it. It won't make any sense to you, but it's funny to me. See which one of these thumbnails you like best, and then I will tell you which I like best. Now, does that sense? Did I say I'm going to tell you which is best? No. Okay, I'm going to tell you what I thought was best.
Do we get the $20 if you agree?
This lady, I mean, she's nice. She hid it hoping that I would forget about it. And you helped her. I saw that. No, on this, I started out with a white canvas. I got things too dark. And you can see I worked on this 2 different times, because you can see the different hues that I have in here, because I had different paint left.
You do that with paint or with like charcoal?
This is all paint. This is the paint that's left at the end of the day, and it's beginning to dry up if I'm not going to paint in a while, and it's getting chunky. In fact, probably some places you can feel some chunks of dried paint on there. And now the sky, in my mind now, is going to be a sunset. I'm in the sunset phase of my life, and I like to paint sunsets, so almost all the things well, that's not true at all.
Turned out on
I just,
location.
I turned out a painting this week that,
I have a question.
yes.
Did you paint that last painting on location? Did you start it and initiate it and paint it at the beach?
Okay, this one that ended up with this big thing?
Yeah. No, you took a photograph
No,
and then you went
no,
home and
this
painted
is a composite of, this is down at Lone Ranch. Show this, looks a little bit better. This is down at Lone Ranch. You go to the north a little bit, and this is very similar. This rock here is about this height here.
But were you there doing it?
No, I did not
you
paint
don't
this. This is a composite of about 5 or 6 paintings.
Oh.
I have books that have the photos in them, that have 100 photos in each book.
What kind of camera do you use?
No, it isn't a no-brainer completely. It's one that you can set in automatic because I do like to change some things. I will, I'm trying to duck this question, but if you want to have good perspective, I can't draw with a darn, but I have more fun going to places where there's paintings and looking at houses or things like that. Like here, you can't screw up perspective too easily. I mean, it's pretty hard to screw up perspective here. Even I can get fairly good perspective here. But you get a big old house or something like that and try to do that. Well, if you're going to do that, or if you're going to paint a portrait of an individual, you should use an 85 millimeter lens. The 50 millimeter, which is a standard lens, gives a certain amount of distortion. But 85 gives you the clearest. But it is so easy to go around and look and estimate pretty much if that person projected up on the thing. Do I think this is wrong projecting? No. I mean, I don't think that's wrong at all. I don't have any objection to it. It doesn't bother me. I sort of have an interest in it, and I enjoy going out and trying to figure out, which way they went, because you can tell from a picture that has been projected up and then traced and then painted in,
Yeah, it's hard to work out in nature because of the elements, but then to get dimensionality on your painting from a flat photograph, you have to work extra hard.
Yeah,
Put more
yeah.
perspective into it.
This is why I think it is very important that you do a lot of studies on location. Then you do enough of those studies on location, then hopefully, and this is the way I teach, I try to get people to do things over and over and over. And it sounds repetitious and things like that, but if they do it over and over and over, by the 3rd or 4th time, they're not thinking about it anyway. It's second nature. I have a commission on a painting from a person's deck on Rainbow Rock from their condominium there. And I have some photos to work from. And I can't do it. I cannot do it. Because there's certain things in composition that I feel maybe 90% of y'all could paint the painting from this photo. I can't. I just can't do it. Because something inside me tells me this is my style. Now my style was determined a lot, or I would say 98% by the time I was 7 or 11 years of age. And so is yours. And so when I taught lessons, I tried to just teach technique and teach how to handle the materials. First of all, safety. Keep the paint out of your nose and your mouth and things like that. But also the techniques of applying it and things like that. And then let them develop their own style, because our personalities and things like that come through in our paintings. And so here's going to be, this thing's going to weigh a ton when I get through. I figure I'm going to have $75 to $100 with paint on it when I finally get it finished. But anyway. Okay. So we talked briefly about abstract design and composition. Another general thing. is thirds. Remember thirds. If you have a question, you got a problem, thirds. What do I mean by thirds? If on a seascape, put this back, the sea length of approximately a third, okay? And then have approximately a third warm and cool colors in a painting. Have approximately a third light and a third dark in values. Values, a painting maybe should have 3 good value areas, 3 good shapes. That's a whole nother thing. I'm going to talk about it because I think it's important. Simplicity is very important in painting. You can get some things very complicated. You can get them very detailed and all these kind of things. But if the basic design, we're going back to this design and abstract, is concrete and good, then it will come out later on as a better painting. What do I mean by that? I don't really know. I just know that it happens the more you paint and the more you study your paintings, the more you study everybody else's paintings. I'd make a general statement, true or not, I think it applies to myself, and hopefully it might apply to you. If I have an abstract on a thing, if I just have dark and light and mid-tone shapes, and it looks good, as I said before, it should work as any type of a painting. You could put any type of a painting on it. And a lot of the times, do you always have to do things on thirds? No. You can compensate for these things with other things. And it's fun to try to do that. Every time I start a painting, I do some thinking about it. And I create a situation that I know I'm going to fail. I don't mind failing. I've failed my whole life at everything, you know. And so I don't mind failing. But boy, every time I fail, I learn. I learn much more. I didn't paint for probably the last 2 years. And yet, in my mind, my painting has improved a lot. And I didn't paint any. I did think about it and things like that. Okay, values. Here's just a little painting. Okay, and as soon as I get the okay, I'll show it around. But it's values, just pure values. Now this was a little scene in Idaho. I paint a lot in Idaho. And I just caught this scene with this big old tree, and I liked it. And I saw it, and I had to take a picture of it. And I took a picture, and then I worked from this. But as that lady said, and that's very important, it's wonderful to paint on location. But I am not good enough, and I am not experienced enough, and I cannot handle the materials well enough to do a good painting on location when you're fighting the bugs, the wind, and everything else. But you can get a bunch of good points. It's good to go out and do a bunch of sketches and work in colors and write down colors. I have 2 photos of the same painting that I didn't change in the inner time. It was made by 2 different color films in 2 different light conditions, and people that see it, they swear it's not even the same painting.
Did you have that painting on Channel 9 last week?
Yes. Yes.
That's where I saw it.
Yeah. They came in and chose some paintings to show. Here's another one I did in Idaho of aspens. In fact, this is similar to the, if you saw that, there was a big one that I have sold.
I just saw part of it.
Oh, but there was a big one that was similar to this. This was a study that I did to make the big one. And the big one is entirely different composition, but it's similar. Okay, here's an older technique. I blended a lot more softer and things like that. I think from some things people like this. This is the way I'm going away from. So maybe within 2 years, the people who like this will just hate my painting. And that's fine. You know, I'm painting for myself. I'm sorry. I'm selfish. Now that I'm approaching middle age, I've got to set some standards and things, some ways to go for myself. Here's a photo here is a study that I've worked up. Now, I hope you all can see why I haven't finished this, why I haven't been instilled to go ahead, you know, to finish it. I'm instilled to go in there and do some more work at this stage.
Did you arrive at that stage by doing a wipe-out technique, by putting that base color on and then wiping it out with either?
I don't wipe out.
Well, you just,
This,
it
okay,
looks very
this
white
is a
now.
tone canvas again.
But it's not a wet tone.
No, no,
So
no, it's
there's
a
a
dry
thick layer.
tone canvas.
There's a thicker layer of paint there than
Yeah,
being wiped
yeah.
out.
These little things right there are the only things that did. After it was sort of wet, I took a turpentine brush, that one little pointed thing that used to be a round this long, and it's about this long, and I just went and let it set for just about that long, and then hit it with a piece of paper towel, and it came off. But I don't know. See this little square up here? That adds a lot to me. That adds a lot to that painting. And these are things that you should make up when you're here. This painting here, I will have 75% of my time in this painting before I ever put anything on. It'll take me 25% of the time on this painting to finish it. And I think this one, I've looked at this long enough now, and I've made enough decisions, and I've made enough changes that I think that I'm going to be painting it when I get ready to. But it's going to take a while, and that brings me to this next thing here. Oh, okay, I'll finish with these. Okay, this was just a little seascape I did, and then this was a
That one was on the TV, right? The one on the right?
this.
Wasn't the one on the right on the TV?
I don't know.
Who's
You're
right?
right ahead.
My right, my right.
This one over here? I don't know. It may have been. I don't know. I do remember that other one. I don't know why. I like that other one with that tree. It's not a great painting, but I like it.
Well, I remembered it from.
And it's a memorable painting, and people that see it remember it. I like this, but it's surprising. It requires very little bit of attention or things at the gallery, but I like it. I took this in to a critique at Liz Jane's class, and I put it in a real fancy gold frame. And I took it in there, and Liz's critique was, that frame is too powerful. It's too nice a frame. It completely overpowers the painting, you know. And so I hung my head and I said, well, Ginger gave me the frame for Christmas. You know, which she didn't, but, you know, I got to stay even with the poor lady, you know. She picks on me, I got to pick on her some way. This, just, okay, we're talking about location. This one I did on location. Where'd that location lady go?
She had a 1 o'clock appointment.
She had, boy, darn, I want to get even with her. Well, on the camera, we'll get even with. No, but this one was done on location. I just used it on a cheapo board, and it came out, I think, nice. I'm happy with it. And I've been happy with it for some time. So that says something, and I don't know what it says. Here's one that very few people like.
Oh, I like it.
Is that the one you liked a long time ago? Violetta, hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You used to have a brilliant
Yeah,
green-
you described it entirely differently. So we all see things differently. She called up and was talking about a painting that I had, and the way she described it, there was no way I'd done a painting like that. And so anyway,
At what time?
do you want to get the camera? I don't know if this was done on location or not. It could have been.
Yes, mat board also.
Yes.
Do you use mat board very often?
Oh, just for studies, for things to carry, it's easy to. And I have a box that you can slip these in.
Yeah, they're good to stack.
And so it's, if I'm painting on location, I use them for that. But no, I don't, not use them for anything else. If you aren't gonna try to use them for permanent work, use a gesso the back.
Not natural.
Oh, really?
It seals them better, yes.
I have a problem with foreground. And,
Well, you're lucky if you just have one problem.
no, I have many problems. It's just that there's something about foreground, I just can't seem to get it in perspective or something. And this seems to, maybe I don't make it dull or nothing.
I don't know. Foregrounds should have more contrast in values. They should have warmer colors, usually. None of these things I'm saying should be all the time. There should be more detail in them, and they should be clear. Yeah, in other words, if you, okay, a fire engine truck, sitting right here in this parking lot, you look at it on a sunny day, it's a certain color, and it's clear. Now you put that same thing way up on a hill, if you have any hills around, it's pretty flat land here, but if you have a hill and it's a long ways away, first of all you get the fog or pollution, the atmosphere between it. Then you also, it's grayed, and it is also cooler. The actual local color will be cooler.
If I want to put a rock there, what do I do? Make it stand out? Right in front? And the rocks are back here or something?
This is a rock.
Yeah.
And
And you have the foreground with the little flowers like?
pass this back to her. We both speak English, but when you get into art, a lot of times we can't understand each other. And how we feel differently about things is how we look at things and how we see things. We see things in different colors. Like in the morning for 2 hours, or 2 hours after I wake up, I see different color with my two different eyes. And sometimes if I'm really tired for some reason or fatigued, late in the day I will see. But usually, I mean, you all are the same color now. Maybe it was that salmon sandwich I had, I don't know. But go ahead.
Do you use a limited amount of brushes? Do you use a limited palette, or do you use a full palette range?
Yes, I am going, most of these pictures that I have done lately, I am doing with 3 colors: alizarin crimson, cadmium yellow, and ultramarine blue. And the reason I use I like ultramarine. I like to me. Okay, when I go to this, in other words, this one I'm going to go to. I'm going to try to make it a good painting, and I'm hoping that I can rely on enough of my unconsciousness that enough of it will come out. See, when I start to paint on here, I've eliminated design. I've eliminated value. I've eliminated so many things on here. All I got to worry about now is color harmony and technique and application of paint.
Are you using cad yellow pale or just plain cad yellow, or cad yellow medium? Which one of those? Because one has more orange and one has. Which one is that ultramarine are you using?
Yeah.
Or your limited palette?
Oh, it's Doris back there.
Yeah.
I am
For that
using-
$20.
I am using Winton cadmium yellow hue. Now that is definitely warmer than pale, and it's definitely a little darker than cadmium yellow light. That's another thing.
It'd be like a cad yellow medium in a regular.
Pretty close. Between a cad yellow light and a cad yellow medium, yes.
Do you sketch much on the canvas first? Shapes?
No. Not now. I have it many times in my life, but I didn't bring her. Just grabbed a bunch of brushes.
Have you
I
always
use-
used that limited palette, or is this something you're just now going to?
I'm
All
just-
these paintings weren't in the limited color, were they?
No, a lot of them, as I say, with this one, I'm going to have alizarin crimson and cadmium. I'm going to have a warm and cool of my three primaries and white. And I will, now I won't be using black. Black is another thing you hear so many people say, don't use black. Black is wonderful. And after you've painted a while and learned to use it. It's a great thing. Never, nothing I say is right, okay? Never use black as a darkening agent. Use black as a color. And black, what color is black? Okay. If you mix black, ivory black, with cadmium yellow, what would you get?
Green.
Green. Okay, so what is black? Black is blue. And think of black as a dark blue. And then you're okay. It's great to make your forest colors because it's grayed already. One more question.
One real quick. You said you used the limited palette of 3 colors, but you just now said you're going to use a warm and a cool, so you're going to use 6 colors, right?
When I go to this, I will put on 6 colors on my palette
Okay.
primarily.
So you'll use ultramarine as your warm and
Ultramarine and probably cerulean.
cerulean as your cool.
I like cerulean for skies. And then my probably cadmium lemon or cadmium pale, and then cad yellow, and then probably Grumbacher red and ultramarine and alizarin crimson.
You never
And
get
probably burnt sienna. I like burnt sienna.
Right, so you never get into your earth colors. You
Burnt sienna I add.
and yellow ochre.
Now this is now.
I know.
And so this will be different in 2 months from now, but I like burnt sienna. Okay. Okay then. Now, I'm going to show you 2 paintings that I will not sell. I was offered $2,000 for this about 3 weeks ago, and I won't sell it.
Why? Because you think you
I think she's stupid. Anybody pay $2,000 for one of my paintings, got to be dumber than me. But no, she liked it, and I don't know why. She was from Idaho, and but I'll tell you about this painting. It was really funny, and this is why I get to one of my points: spontaneity. And spontaneity can only develop through spontaneity can only develop after you've painted, as the old expression goes, miles of canvas or miles of watercolor painter. In other words, you've got to have a bunch of things unconscious in your mind. You've got to get them so, and then when you paint, you've got to get into the Raquel Welch nude, walking across the room. I would have not noticed her when I painted this. I was so deep in the right side of my brain that you could have kicked me, and I wouldn't have known you kicked me. I wish I knew how to get there. Betty Edwards has a relatively new book on the right side of the brain, and it's supposed to tell you how to get there, and I'm going to try to get it and read it. But America education, through the primaries, through college, and through postgraduate school, works on the left side of the brain.
Could you palette knife any of that?
Yes, yes.
You can see this.
But let me finish on this. I worked on it, and I got into and I developed it, and I was beginning to apply some paint and things like that, and I had some undercolors, wet undercolors put in here, and things like that. And I didn't even have any idea what time it was, and I looked, and I had to leave in an hour. Oh, and I had this paint mixed up. I had to leave in an hour. So, wow. I thought, well, I'm going to do it. And I threw those flowers, I threw this in there in an hour.
Wow.
I don't know know why it happened, how it happened. I can't get there. This is why I won't sell this, because I could never do it again.
You were on the right side of the brain.
Yeah, right.
Wonderful.
But I think I've been in the right side other times when I didn't do this. I'll feel it. And I have a little bit of problems in that this is so refined down here.
It doesn't match this.
It doesn't go together, you know. And but I've talked to some people and they say it doesn't bother them. And it
When
doesn't.
you tip it that way, the light just really
From over
pops.
here. It's
Changes.
really beautiful.
Yeah.
Now that's I took a painting off the wall yesterday. I think I mentioned this that I'm not going to sell. And the reason I took it off is I took a photo of it because I was going to sell it and I wanted to have a photo of it. And I took a photo of it, and I don't know what happened in that photo. The photo looks beautiful. The painting looks terrible. Not terrible. It looks okay, but there's no comparison. And what had happened? Okay, here, throw in this back window. You know, to get some variety and some happening on. This other painting didn't have anything going on. It was a floral. It didn't have anything going on in this background, you know, and it just sort of. And then it had a drape coming down here, and due to the thick brush strokes and the paint and the oil that I used in doing it, you look at it and you don't see it. I mean, it's there, and there's a little bit of value change, but you recognize it as probably a drape going down behind it. Well, this photo I took of it, the way the sun hit, I have specks all around this floral, and this drape looks coming down there. It looks like those Malibu feather things that these hussies used to wear, you know, all fuzzed up. Yeah. And so, but there was a bunch of things that happened in the photograph that make the actual painting just look dull as the devil, because the glistening of the brush strokes in the oil was picked up by the photo, but it isn't shown in the painting. And I sat there and moved it all around and tried to get all kinds of light reflections on it. I can't get what that camera got, but I got that painting, and that baby's going to go back on the easel, and it's going to end up like that photo.
Did it have a flash?
No, didn't have a flash. I'll pass this around. But as I say, the thing I like about that painting is the flowers and the way they are painted. And some people, you'd be surprised, a lot of people come in. Most of the people that come in are very impressed with Bob Ross paintings. And they think that because he's on color television and an instructor, that we should all strive to be just like him. And so if it's not like him, they don't think it's a good painting. Yes.
Have you ever used fluorescent paint?
I've thought about it. I was thinking about doing a little. Now, fluorescent
Fluorescent.
or a pearlescent?
Well, both.
Okay, I was thinking of the pearlescence
Yeah,
to go along on the shimmer on the ocean and things like that.
I saw this like 100 years ago in a fair, and I couldn't believe how they made it shine.
Yeah.
And now they've come up with this fluorescent.
Yeah.
Fluorescent.
Daniel Smith has it a lot of.
Also,
They call it iridescence and pearlescence and luminescence. 3 different types.
I haven't used it yet, and I'm afraid to start.
Well, I've thought about it, but I thought it'd be fun to try it. I don't know if it is turning paintings into crafts.
Well, that's.
I don't know. But I'm going to try it. Then here's another one that I did, and I don't know why I did it or how I did it or why it happened. I'm not too impressed with these a couple of these flowers up here, but I love this vase and this thing down here. And you take this and put it in the sun. I mean, you look at it right here and decide what colors you're going to paint this with, and you go out in the sun, and it's going to look entirely different. And
She
so
needs it on the camera.
You glaze your finished paintings with something? That one doesn't look like it had any glaze on it.
And none of these have because none of them are finished.
This way.
He said.
And as long as I have it,
That's what he said.
it will not be finished. In fact, you'll probably notice most of my paintings, very, I haven't signed a painting in the last 2 years, or 3 years. And
When you do glaze one, what do you use for your glaze, for your finish?
I do not use liquid.
When you're painting, you don't use liquid?
No, I do not use liquid as a glaze.
Coal or anything? Do you use liquid when you're painting?
Yes, or the Daniel Smith painting medium. And then I make some of my own medium with linseed oil and turp, and then linseed oil and turp with Daymar, but that stinks. I mean, it really smells up a room. The Daymar does, but it does get your things to tack up, but you can get about the same effect using liquid and letting it dry just a little while. You can come back and paint on it the next day.
You could use matte medium or gloss medium
You can, yeah, you can.
on finished pictures.
Yeah.
Matte medium on acrylic, on oil? You can use matte medium on oil?
Yes, there is a matte.
Not for acrylic, we're not talking matte oil medium?
Yeah, I think there's a matte for acrylics also.
Yeah, there is.
But I read, people used to put liquid on their painting as the final thing, and then I read a thing a while back that you can't get back to it, you can't get under it and repaint on it and things like that. So
It's kind of a shine that
yeah, it does have a high shiny surface. You got that? What are you knitting? 100%. Nothing that I've said today is false on 100%. I want you to know that if you want to improve your painting, don't worry about what your neighbor says, your kids say, your grandma says, or Greta says, and especially Letha. But please yourself, paint for yourself, and be happy with that. And as I say, I'm lucky enough I don't have to worry about selling things to put. I got my garden going, and my chickens start laying next month, and so I'll never be a starving artist.
Where did you ranch it?
In Montana.
In Montana.
I still run cattle up there in the summertime. Buy them in the spring and sell them in the fall.
Do you do night work?
That is
one?
quite a bit of night.
I thought it was. Did it go back? Oh, excuse me.
it did.
Oh, it did, okay.
It's been back here.
Is that little seascape that I gave to her for the rock?
Yeah.
I don't know where that is. But that one is 100% night. There's no brush on that. That is part brush and part, okay, who liked it?
We didn't see it.
I don't think the front row got it.
But this was largely night, as when you've seen it up close. This was, I don't think there's any knife in that.
Gus?
Yes.
On your monochromatic colors on this big one, did you use all three of your colors together to make kind of a Payne's gray, to get your gray colors?
I just mixed what was on my palette.
That's what I
What was
thought.
left,
Yeah,
and I didn't
so it
care.
just comes out sort of a gray.
I had this painting right side up, down at the library, sitting in the back, and I'll bet you 8 or 10 people wanted to know when I was going to frame it, or why it wasn't framed, and thought it was finished. And I thought that was really interesting.
From a distance, it looks like a charcoal.
And
Yeah.
Neat, just the way it is.
What's the name of your gallery?
Shoe House. And the reason it's called Shoe House, it's the oldest house on, I guess, the oldest house on Chetco Avenue. And it was a residence at one time, and then the first business that was in there, they called it the Little Red Shoe House. and they sold shoes there. And there's been several people in there that wanted, that had bought shoes there. And in fact, my first sign said Shoe House Gallery, and 9 out of 10 people came in wanting to buy shoes. So I changed the sign to just say Art Gallery, and I left the shoes out. Probably would have made a lot more money selling shoes. How many like the lower one?
We didn't see it yet.
Had your chance.
Somebody wasn't passing it on.
Okay, is there anyone else that's been bashful that hasn't asked some questions? I'd be glad to give you my opinions. As you all probably know, I'm very opinionated.
Okay. You said something about the conditioner for your oil brushes. What's that conditioner?
There, you can buy different conditioners, and they just call them conditioners.
I didn't know that.
You can use transmission fluid. Transmission fluid?
And it doesn't stay in and run your paint later?
Well, I clean it out before I use it. Yeah.
With what?
With the turf. I've been, in fact, maybe it was here several years ago. Someplace around here, they said that you could just use cooking oil.
I use olive oil.
But if you use cooking oil or olive oil, if you don't keep using it periodically, boy, in about a year or so, your brushes become very stiff, and I haven't found a way to clean them out. I can't get them soft again. So if you use your olive oil and keep using your brush enough till you wear your brush out, that's fine. But that's the problem I've had with it.
Now,
Yeah,
my ex-husband was a sign painter, and he used motor oil.
Yeah.
That's what he used on after he cleaned his brushes, and he just wipe it on real heavy and put his brushes away. Oh, he left it in it.
And you didn't clean it before you started painting?
Oh, yeah,
You cleaned it out with your
yeah,
paint?
right.
What was it you used?
Motor oil.
I know when I change oil and grease my car and get my hands dirty, I just take a little, when I put the oil in, I just take a little bit of that clean oil and clean my hands, and it
Right.
really cleans them really well. And so,
Do you do that after you've painted every time, after each using?
I do. It's a habit I've gotten into. Now that I'm painting down at the gallery where I paint every day, it probably isn't necessary. But I do because, oh, and that's another thing. Any brush, as I say, I wear mine out and I handle them. But every time when you start to use a brush, and this would apply to acrylics as well as oils, take that brush and put it in turf or water and get it really soaked up good, and then clean it off. And then, because you want the inside of that brush, the bristles down deep inside here, you want that to be covered with the turf or with the water, and then it cleans up much better. And as I say, all my brushes feel just as good now as they did.
So do you recommend the oil for brushes that are used for acrylics also?
I have read a lot of places, I have no personal experience, but I have read a lot of places that you shouldn't use the same brush for acrylics as you do for oils. I do know that a lot of times they say on cleaning an oil brush you should clean it with a mild soap.
I do.
That dries it out. It dries out the brush. I'm going to tell a terrible story, which Ginger gets very upset at me. I mean, it really, it's terrible that she even hates to be living with me with when I do such a terrible thing. But 40 years ago, about 40 years ago, I was getting quite bald. Getting the bald pattern, the big spot back here about this big, and this was all real thin here. And I don't know, I was a dentist, and I had this patient in, and he was an Italian. This is a funny story. And he came in, and I'd been doing some work on him, and And so this one day he was real upset and nervous and antsy, you know. And so I was finally doing some work, and I was right in the middle of drilling on his tooth. And he reaches up and he grabs my hand, pulls it down, and he says, "I don't think a wife should run around." And he was a real good-looking Italian man, and he had a real good-looking wife. And I won't say any more what happened, but I don't know why he did that. But he was very upset that day. But I got to know him very well, and talking to him. And this was the time with Selsun Blue, you know, when I had dandruff, and when you're a dentist, you don't want to drip all over the customers. And so I was using Selsun Blue and all these quote things, you know, the medical society and the pharmaceutical companies have produced to live in our society today. And he had this real beautiful, thick black hair. And so he says, "Well, you want to have some nice hair again?" And I said, "Yes, how?" And he says, "Quit washing it." The last time my hair had soap or shampoo on it was in 1984, when I was greasing my motor home, and the zert squirted out, and it came down and landed in the middle of my head, and I thought it was a bug, and I went like that, and it was a big blob of greasy oil that come out of a used zert, and so I did wash my hair then. But since then, I have not washed my hair. I was very interested. I was talking to a physician who seemed very open-minded. I mentioned that I hadn't washed my hair, and she says, "Oh," she went like this. She says, "Good, you had some nice natural oils." And so here was a physician that knew what had happened. In other words, it was a shampoo, and things like that was just killing my scalp and my hair. And so then, shortly after that, my hair got a lot thicker. Now, one other thing, I do stimulate it with one of those stimulators. I rub it through.
Rogaine?
No, don't use anything like that. Don't use anything except water. And,
So you just clean your hair with water and no soap?
yeah. I'm sorry. I'm dirty. A lot of people think it's terrible.
My husband has a very oily scalp, so I
Yeah. Then he would probably need to run some warm salt, warm water through it every day.
Baking soda.
So, but anyway, so the condition of hair or brushes are the same thing. I think you can ruin them fast, or you can take care of them.
Makes sense. What kind of oil did you use again on your brushes?
I use transmission fluid right now.
Oh, okay.
I have some brush conditioner, which I use sometimes, and I use transmission fluid other times. Yes.
I'm not asking all these questions. You
I
have them
know.
on.
She asked you.
Like I'm asking.
Right.
What's the stimulator?
Yeah, what's a stimulator?
Oh.
You want to know that, Doris?
These are non-electric appliances. No, they're those things that have a million little things like this, and you can buy them for 79 cents down at
Those are
Walmart.
rubber, right?
What?
They're made out of rubber, right?
They were in our age, yes. Now the new ones are plastic. But,
I got enough hair for 3 people, I don't need to know.
well, not too many women get male pattern baldness. So I don't know. It's, you know, so much heredity. You know, they say if your parents did it, but I believe very strongly that we can change. I think heredity gets blamed for a lot of things by the medical profession, and I don't know. I had a heart attack a few months ago, and here again it goes to attitude. And I was sitting down there on the hospital right here in Crescent City, and I was still conscious, and they were asking me questions, and this doctor asked me questions, and said, so he came up and says, "How far can you walk?" How far can you walk? I mean, you know, I didn't know the answer to that question. I'm basically an honest person. I'm rude and insulting, but I'm honest. And so I didn't know how far I could walk. I know a week before that, I called up and my car was fixed, and they said, "Can you come down and pick it up?" And they said, "We close in about less than 3 hours, about 2.5 hours, and I live about 9 miles from there." And so my only thought was changing shoes, you know, because I had to walk down and pick up my car, and I knew And then I started figuring how fast I had to walk to get there in 2.5 hours. And so, but anyway, so I don't know how far I could walk.
Did you do that? Did you walk 9 miles?
Oh yeah, just walk down and get the car.
Well, then you can walk 9
Well,
miles.
I know I can walk, but he said, how far can you walk? I don't know if I could probably walk 50, 60 miles, you know, if it depended on if I was going to get dinner.
I was gonna say, who's on the other end?
But anyway, so the third time he asked me, you know, and I didn't know how far, and so the third time I asked him, I looked at him, he had a nice little pouch on his stomach. I loved surgery when I was in dentistry, and I looked at his hands, I looked at his neck. You know what I said to him? I'm sitting there having a heart attack. He says, further than you. So that's attitude. And maybe it's the same attitude that I have in my painting, like I don't care if other people like it, I paint it because I want to please myself. And I think all of us have enough, well, develop our own styles, it will develop differently. But we will develop our own styles if we are true to ourselves and are true to our feelings. And try to have feelings when you paint, emotions about what you paint, yes.
When did you start painting?
I think it was in the first grade when they do the finger painting, you know. I didn't really get serious in the painting until, 10 or 12 years ago. About the time that I started having angina, that I went to about 6 doctors and none of them diagnosed. I didn't find out until I had the heart attack. But I feel that my father, 52, one grandparent, 47, one grandparent, 48, all heart attacks. So they say it's heredity. Well, I think there's other things.
How old are you?
71.
Just a baby.
Yeah. As I say, I'm going into my mid-age crisis. So,
Is your family painters?
no,
There you go.
no. But as I say, I think it's nice if you can have some feeling about the things you paint and enjoy what you paint. As you see, I painted, I was raised in Kansas City, and I love to get out. A few times I remember going on hikes with my dad or my uncle, and I enjoy getting out. And so I enjoy, as you see from my paintings, most of them are
You
outside.
still ride?
What?
You still ride?
Ride.
Isn't that what they do on cattle ranches? They ride?
ATVs.
ATVs anymore.
The last, there is something,
Airplane.
horses have a sixth sense, like humans. And horses, the last horse I was on was, I think, 19 years old, had never bucked in his life, and I got on it, and he started bucking. And the one before that, I got on, I was fixing fence, and my boy came down and said, give you a ride back home, Dad. And I says, okay, and I was about a mile from the house, and we've got big ranches in Montana. And so I threw up and got on top of the horse on the back of him, and I felt this thing getting ready to buck, and so I got my butt about this far off of him, and I was getting ready to swing off, and that baby came up. And my other son looked at him and said, I was way above Eric's head. And then they said I came down like a badminton, you know, with my butt at the heaviest part, you know, and came right on down and hit the ground and bounced. And I got up, and I didn't recognize anybody. And I looked up and I saw the house, and it was funny, I recognized the house. And I started walking, and my kids couldn't stop me, and I walked through fences and through irrigation ditches, and then they followed me with their horses, and because I didn't want anyone to touch me or anything, and then we got about maybe 50 yards or so from the house, and here was a bucket that the kids had used to feed their dogs with out in the hayfield. And so I picked up the bucket and chewed the kids out for letting their bucket be in the hayfield. It would ruin the haybine. And so then my kids didn't worry anymore. They knew I was normal. When I was chewing them. Not that I know of.
I did when I bounced like that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I used to be on horses. like to land on your button down.
No, but I don't ride horses anymore. I
Never did.
yeah, I never did ride them very much.
With ATV.
Well, strange as it may seem, actually, with two of my boys and my long legs. And we run them so that they have to go through the barnyard, and this is where we keep the salt. And so we run them from field to field all summer long, and then they're used to coming in. And then I fenced off some willows and some bad areas. That's another story. You all don't have time for that. Anything else on art? That's what we came here to talk about.
One more question. Did you do your flowers hanging on the wall in the Gary Jenkins or Bob Ross wet on wet technique? Looks like you might have put the base color on and then pull it in. You know what they call those fancy flowers?
Doesn't look like it.
I don't think
You
so.
don't think so?
No.
I just was wondering.
You mentioned, I'm the best Bob Ross certified instructor in Montana. And I can say that with, all certainty. That's one of the few things I've said today that's true. I'm the best one. Come on, Greta, you're supposed to ask me how many there are.
That's pretty only one.
Yeah, I'm the only one, so therefore I'm the best. I am also the worst. But anyway, so I've enjoyed, and I want to thank you for letting me talk to you. And even though this lady tried to get me to forget, there is no question in my mind who benefited most from today, who learned the most from the day, whose paintings will improve the most from this day, and I want to thank you for it.
Well, you should get something to eat now. You haven't eaten yet.
Oh, well, I ate a little bit back there.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Greta kept talking to me, and I tried to. Greta, she's a nice lady, but boy, she has a lot of delusions. And be honest with yourself. Oh, and then one more thing. Be your most critical critic. I mean, be honest with yourself. I mean, none of us are great artists, but we can all benefit by thinking about things and think how, and when you look at a painting, think how you would change it. Another thing I didn't mention, which I think is very important, is learn to use colors and gray your colors, and don't use a lot of bright colors. And you say there's bright colors in here, but there's a lot of grays.
Right.
Give them, and
You tone them down.
yeah, and tone them down with the complement
Right.
to make your grays.
Pretty. Very nice.